you guys see him as Tony Hinchcliffe or you guys see him as Kill Tony. But I just see him as Tony because I met him 16 years ago when he was just starting in stand-up. And, you know, you guys, people have been asking me a lot how me talking about the Mothership has affected my life. And one of the most common questions I get is people asking me if a lot of people have stopped talking to me. And I always give the same answer, and I'll give you guys the answer because I'm sure plenty of you wonder how that's gone. And what I will say is that nobody of consequence has stopped talking to me. And anybody that may have stopped talking to me, I really wouldn't notice that kind of thing because at any given time, there are more people talking to me that I want to be talked to by. So when you're in that position, people cutting you off really is not a punishment at all. You're just like, yeah, you're a person that I really didn't like talking to in the first place. And if you notice, when we would interact, it would be mainly me listening to you talk and just saying things like, wow, that's crazy. Oh, that happened? I just don't really have a lot to give to people. And so the answer is, I have been told that certain people, and remember that when I say things like certain people, I say these things because there are enough people that have told me this that I don't have to worry about any one person knowing that this was the person that told me. That's how many people will tell me certain things. And so when it comes to the Mothership situation, yes, I have been told by certain people that they've been told by door guys or people that work for the Mothership in different capacities that they're not supposed to talk to me. And I'm recording this video so that the rest of those motherfuckers won't talk to me. If you want to see me perform live, join me every Wednesday at 10 p.m. for Ty Rivera and Friends at the Creek in the Cave here in Austin, Texas. This is not at all trying to win anybody over, be like, hey, you guys, be on my side. No, stay where you're at. That's what I want from everybody, is to stay exactly where they're at. And for the people that think that I'm not hearing about you talking to me, I just want you to know that when this all comes around and everybody's in love with me again, I'm going to remind you of where you were, and I'm going to keep you honest. And I'm not going to be shitty about it, but I am going to be like, no, Tony Casas, there's really nothing for us to talk about. And so with Tony Casas specifically, I have nothing against this guy. But I did hear that he's been saying a lot of things about me to people on the hush hush. And my feeling about Tony Casas was I never really liked talking to him anyway. I was always very pleasant with him, but I never considered him to be my friend. So the other night, I accidentally ended up saying hi to him because he was standing outside of the creek, which this is shot at the creek. Again, I remind everybody, my views do not reflect that of the creek or anybody involved with the creek. I only speak for me. That's why I'm here alone, is because this is all just me. Trust me, nobody's feeding me this shit. If anything, people are asking me not to say all the stuff I'm saying. But when it comes to Tony Casas specifically, I walked out the other night after maybe doing the mic or something like that. I don't even remember what I was doing here, but I was recording my podcast, which I had a guest on, and that'll come out in a little bit. But for this one, I wanted to do it alone. And so I had recorded my podcast, and when I walked out, I saw Sean Gardini, who's one of the comics that moved here as part of Shane Gillis's crew. And then I saw Colin Terrell, who's here from New York, and he was doing the St. Patrick's Day show at the Mothership. And so I saw them immediately, and I'm very cool with both of them. I respect both of them. So I shook both of their hands, and it was like where there's three people in a row and I wasn't really paying attention. And then Tony Casas had his hand out after them, and I had already heard Tony had been talking about me. So I knew that, but I didn't want to make a scene right then in front of Colum and Sean. But at the same time, I did feel like if you know, because you're the one doing it, how much you talk about me, then why would you even want to say hi to me? And that's what'll make me not respect people. How am I trying to phrase this? I don't lose respect for people for making the decisions that they make, because I know that some people have to do what's best for their career in that moment. And if you have somebody that's of influence to you, like say a Tony Hinchcliffe telling you that you shouldn't hang out with me or you shouldn't talk to me or that's not going to be good for you. And especially if you're a person like Tony Casas, who has to be loyal to Tony Hinchcliffe, because back when the Tony Hinchcliffe situation happened with Payway or Pai Gao or whatever that guy's name was that tried to get Tony canceled during that time of year that we're not allowed to mention the name of, during that time in 2020 that we're not allowed to mention the name of on Facebook or on YouTube, Tony Casas had turned his back on Tony Hinchcliffe, and Tony Hinchcliffe found out about it. Tony Casas had unfollowed him on Instagram, which is a petty thing to do, but whatever, you know, especially because somebody got canceled and now you think they're worthless. Even though Tony Hinchcliffe had worked Tony Casas before that. He was having him be on some of his shows and stuff like that. But Tony Casas just tends to be kind of a worm like that. And I knew that to begin with, so I never really put faith in that being a friendship. That's why I say I was very pleasant with him, but I was never really worried about him or thought of about him as my friend. And sometimes when I mention names like Tony Hinchcliffe, people would be like, are you worried about Tony Hinchcliffe not having you on Kill Tony anymore? And the fact of the matter is I did three Kill Tony episodes. I was asked by Tony to do every one of those episodes. That was not my idea. That was not me hitting Tony up and being like, hey, can I be a guest on Kill Tony? And I was appreciative for doing it. But at the same time, the first time I did it, I didn't even know I was doing Kill Tony. Tony asked me if I would do his show. I thought maybe it was an Ann Friend show. I really had no idea what I was doing. And I was just coming to Austin to come check it out. I wasn't even living in Austin at that time. And so I said, yes, I would do it. And then it turned out I was doing Kill Tony. And I was like, this is cool. This is a cool situation. I remember Kill Tony when it was starting off in LA. But the other thing people have to remember about my situation with Tony Hinchcliffe is you guys see him as Tony Hinchcliffe or you guys see him as Kill Tony. But I just see him as Tony because I met him 16 years ago when he was just starting in stand-up and he had just arrived in LA and he was fresh off the bus from Youngstown, Ohio, or wherever he had come from in between Ohio and LA. But I met him when he first got to LA and I saw him come up as a door guy. And I was always very proud of Tony for how hard he worked. And I was always very cool with Tony because I was already like 5 years in by the time I met Tony. And I was working for Joe Coy at the time, featuring for him every week. And I was definitely what you would call more established at that time. And I remember even though Tony was a door guy and brand new, I was always nice to him and I always treated him with respect. And so I think that's why the friendship carried over. And I put friendship in quotes because during this situation, I ended up finding out personally that me and Tony aren't really friends like he always says we are. And so when it comes down to it, I do respect Tony for what he's built. And I respect Tony for the amount of work that he's put in to becoming an okay comic. Because when it comes to actual stand-up, Tony Hinchcliffe is not an elite comic. And no major comic or comic that's worth their salt would literally tell you that. Most comics would be like, yeah, he's okay. What he's got is a really great product, which is Kill Tony. And I would not take that away from him. He is great at the banter on Kill Tony. I like watching Kill Tony when I would be live at the Mothership. You know, I'd hang out in the green room while I was waiting to go up at the mic at Mothership in Little Boy, and Kill Tony is happening in Fat Man. and I would hang out and watch it. And I really did like watching Tony. And I would tell him like things that he said throughout the night that I thought were funny. I'm me, so I don't have the best attention span. So every once in a while I'd go outside and I'd smoke a cigarette and then I'd come back up and watch a little bit more. And so I really do respect that part of Tony. But to sum up the way I feel about Tony, or what I think about Tony when I think of my interactions with him, or a good way of just like letting you guys know how I see him, is there was one time when Kill Tony was happening at Vulcan still. And I think it was the second time I had done Kill Tony. And so we get to the end of the night and I had just walked out of the green room. And so I was standing behind Tony as he was looking somewhere across the upstairs of the Vulcan, like looking towards the bar, if you're familiar with the layout of Vulcan. And I was standing right behind him because I was about to tell him goodnight. So I was letting him look at whatever he had to look at. I wasn't in a hurry to get out of there. I was cool to wait till he turned around and saw me. And what happened was he wasn't paying attention. So when he turned around, he ended up stepping on my foot, and then he tripped and kind of stumbled, and his face like brushed my chest. Like, you know, put it this way. If my chest had been a window, he would have streaked it all up with his lips. Like it was just like, and, you know, like that kind of situation. And me, I am a good friend if I like you. And so I'll try to help you not embarrass yourself. So I went ahead and grabbed his arms, you know, so that he wouldn't like fall or anything like that. And so that is always, though, the way that I'll look at Tony. You know, it's a good metaphor for the way that I see him. Just a comical little man tripping over his own feet while being held up by stronger comics. So when people try to act like, is there a consequence? No, there's absolutely no consequence to anything I say when it comes to Tony Hinchcliffe. And I'm not going to pretend there is. And I don't care who he tells, don't talk to Ty or don't let Ty work this show. I already told you guys, I have basically quit stand-up. I am actively seeking no work. So I don't know what Tony thinks he's going to take away from me by telling people about me, but do whatever you have to do, Tony. When it comes down to it, you're just upset because I will not respect your authority, as they would say on South. Well, it's what it is. You know, I'm not gonna bend a knee. And that's what I'm tired of. And that's the reason that I wanted to get away from Mothership, which I know some people, because I said that story about them sending the door guys the message saying that I was no longer allowed in Mothership. What I didn't get to tell you guys in that, because I just talked the way that I talked, is I had let them know that I wasn't coming back to Mothership because I didn't like the way I was being treated there. So I made that decision, and then they went ahead and told security and the door guys that I wasn't supposed to be there anymore, which technically was before I did the thing that they said that if I did it, that I would not be able to be there anymore. But I had told them, yeah, I'm done with this place anyway. I don't care. There's no consequence to anything I do. I'm not going to let you guys think. And so I just don't want to be a part of a world where I'm expected to pretend that Tony's one of the best comics in the world because I saw Tony's Netflix special, which if anybody's ever seen Tony's Netflix special, it was called One Shot and he missed. It was a terrible special. That special was so bad. I think that was part of an Illuminati humiliation ritual is how bad that special was. That special was so bad. If I was Tony, I would have given Netflix their money back and thrown in an extra 20 and been like, hey, can we just keep this between us? Let's just admit this one didn't work out. And let's not let this see the light of day. And I was so down for Tony that at that time, because, you know, it was great. Like we were friends. Like I really did think me and Tony were friends until just recently. And I wouldn't be talking all this or telling you guys all this. Some of these thoughts would have just been in my head because it's just what it is, you know? And sometimes people get like, well, you're being fake if you act like people are better. I never lied to anybody about Tony's stand-up. I never told anybody. What I will do if we're actual friends, though, is I will keep certain things to myself and be like, that's a thought that can stay inside my head. Because the truth is, if I didn't talk to people just based off of their stand-up, there would be a lot fewer people that I would talk to. And that's just a part of this business. Sometimes you do got to be cool with people, even though their stand-up may not be what you or a lot of audiences think that they should be. But when Tony got his Netflix special, I was so excited because I did have that feeling at that time, like one of our guys got on. I was an LA comic. Tony was obviously an LA comic. Yeah, we're both from different places, but we both do fall under what would be an LA comic. That's where we got our chops. And Tony got his Netflix special, and I was so happy for him that I watched that Netflix special the night it came out. And I had my 2 little dogs. I remember I was making spaghetti because I had planned to make a night of it. I wasn't booked anywhere that night. I wasn't going to go anywhere that night. I was like, I'm going to clean my apartment. I'm going to watch Tony's special. I'm going to make myself a good dinner. And when Tony came on, you know, because at the beginning, he's finishing a cigarette, he flicks it out, then he like heads into the venue, which is the Ice House in Pasadena, which is essential to the plot. We will be talking about this just a little bit, because I don't think people get the full scope. And I want to make sure people know exactly why I say the things that I say, because sometimes I say things and people are like, you're just being a hater. And it's like, no, I know the inside of this one. So that's why I have the opinion that I have. None of what I say comes from hate. If anybody were to tell you about what it is it's like to interact with me, I'm not talking about Mothership all the time in my regular life. Technically, I wouldn't be even making this if I hadn't heard from so many people that people from Mothership were trying to besmirch my name. Because as far as I'm concerned, it pretty much should be done. Like, I said what I said. They say whatever they say. But what I don't do that they will do is I don't get on the phone with people and try to make it so it ruins anything for anybody. I put an opinion on the internet. People can either take it or leave it. People can watch it or not watch it. For me, a lot of this is just content by the time I talk about it. There's very little emotion left for me once I talk about something. But what happened was I was with my dogs, made my spaghetti. I saw Tony come on, you know, he got on stage. He had just flicked a cigarette out. He got on stage and literally I clapped. I was so happy to see Tony doing his thing. This is his special. And I saw Tony from the beginning. So I saw Tony when he was really, really eating shit. Like, you know, because when you're a new comic, it's what it is. You're eating shit a lot of times at the beginning, especially Tony coming up at the Comedy Store the way he did. He would get the worst spots of the night, which is just part of being a newer comic. So I'm not trying to clown on that, but he would still work his material and be doing what he was doing. So I was actually excited to see him get on, and I literally did clap when I was watching it. And then we got like 5 minutes in and I was like, we're off to a shaky start. And then we got like 10 minutes in and I was like, something has gone horribly wrong. Somebody grabbed the wrong tape. I don't know. Maybe what should have ended up on the cutting room floor ended up on like Netflix. They're having a glitch because this is not going well at all. And this special was horrible. Absolutely horrible. And if you don't believe me, see if you can find it somewhere. Tony's very successful. He might have had it scrubbed from the internet by now. I know I would have. But it just wasn't good. And to know how not good it was, what you have to know, and the reason I mentioned the Ice House in Pasadena, was it was shot at the Ice House in Pasadena, which is known throughout the industry as what they call a soft room. Which is a soft room is a room that'll laugh at absolutely anything. They don't care what you say. They will laugh at what you're saying at the Ice House. If you're ever having a slump or you feel like you're not good at stand-up, go to the Ice House in Pasadena because they will laugh at everything at the Ice House in Pasadena. So there's the venue that should have been stacked in Tony's favor, why he should have killed it. There's the fact that he knew he was making this special, so I'm sure he put out what he thought was his best material, and he must have worked it over and over. Tony is a meticulous guy, so he must have worked this material over and over and really had it down. So there's also that stacked in his favor. Joey Coco Diaz had opened for him that night, So Joey Coco Diaz is amazing, and he says such outlandish things that once he's gone on, you can say absolutely anything you want, and the audience is ready for it because they just got through watching Joey Coco Diaz. So when all of that is stacked in your favor, plus there's also the fact that when you shoot a special, people are going to be extra excited for you. So the audience is double on your side because not only are they an Ice House crowd, but they also know that they're there for a special. So the fact that he didn't kill it in that special should tell people something about Tony's actual stand-up. And it bothers a lot of people, but that's the only thing I really do respect in this business. You can be good at all the other stuff, and I do think that that's cool. But when it comes to me actually respecting people, I respect the stand-up. So Kill Tony is great. If you happen to be really good at making sketches, that's great too. If you happen to be a really great actor, that's great too. Those are all cool things. But that's not what I think of when I'm like, who would be above me in a hierarchy? Like for me, it's like, do you get bigger laughs? Are you a better writer? Things like that. And I don't mind admitting that there are certain people that I consider to be better than me, like Corey Holcomb is a comedian that maybe everybody doesn't know, because that's the other thing people online get twisted, is they'll be like, well, I've never heard of you, so you must not be that funny. There are comedians that solely work the road. And I mean the crappiest part of the road, which was part of what I worked for a long time, but only the crappiest part of the road that you will never hear of that are funnier than anybody you're seeing on TV. Anybody that's big on YouTube, they just haven't figured out the marketing, or some of these people have family situations where they haven't been able to just chuck it all and be like, I'm going to go to LA, or I'm going to go to New York, or I'm going to come to Austin. Some of them are making enough money just doing the road, and they have families that they have to support, and they have responsibilities. And so they can't just go chase the dream. They've got to do comedy like a job. And they're good enough at it that they're going to make enough money to do everything they have to do, but they may never be famous. So when people say stuff like that, it just shows me how little you actually know about the world of stand-up and the way that stand-up works. But like I mentioned, Corey Holcomb, he has a show on YouTube. It's called 5150. He recently said something about Dave Chappelle, where he said that a lot of people don't realize that Dave Chappelle bombs a lot. Which, like, I saw that when he said it, and as a person that's seen Dave Chappelle a lot in LA, he does bomb a lot of times. But you say that and people act like you're hating, and it's like, no, that's what it is. And then some people are like, well, he's working out. And that's where, and some people get mad at me for saying this because they think that it's sacrilege that I would say this about Dave Chappelle. But I don't think there's a comic good enough that they shouldn't do some open micing. Or some kind of working it out where it's not a situation where it's a paid audience. And if they're gonna do it, then do a quick 10 minutes. Because the other thing that people don't understand about Dave Chappelle is 9 out of 10 times he's gonna do a monster set. Or I should say amount of time. So it's gonna be like an hour plus. And I do mean on the plus side, because sometimes it'll be 2 hours, sometimes it'll be 3 hours, and it's just him smoking cigarettes. There are stories of where club owners have turned on the lights and just been like, Dave, we're done, you know, because the club has already been closed for an hour, technically. The servers can't make any more money. They've already closed out. The club is basically making no money at that point, but still having to pay for some of the staff that should already be clocked out. And instead, they're waiting for Dave Chappelle to get tired of talking. Because it's not about doing a set at that point. It's just Dave talking. And it's very self-indulgent. And it's the kind of thing that you can only get away with when you're rich and famous. And I do mean that combination of rich and famous. And so, you know, for me, I know people will get very frustrated with that, but I just refuse to constantly bend the knee to people that I don't see as above me or as my superior in comedy, which you could be newer than me and possibly be my superior in comedy. It's not likely, but it could happen. There are some people that are very funny. Like there are certain people that people want me to talk crap about that I'm just not going to, because I do see what a lot of the world sees. Like when it comes to Cam Patterson, I will be 100% honest and tell you, I see the same star in Cam Patterson that a lot of people do. Like there's just something special about him. And yeah, he's having to play catch up and reverse engineer it. And that's why I don't try to completely slam Tony and kill Tony, because I think it really has provided opportunities to people. But where I do think it gets a bit evil when it comes to Tony is just because I called you out for saying that you do book your friends and that Kim Congdon and Sarah Weinschenk are particularly funny and the other stuff that I said like that, you get mad at me and you start trying to make it so that if I was trying to work that I couldn't work, and also try to make it so that I'm ostracized from the Austin comedy community, which would not happen anyway. Because the thing that I have over Tony when it comes to that is I have a personal relationship with a lot of the newer comics that Tony, because he's sitting on his high horse and in his ivory tower, won't bother to talk to. He wouldn't spit on them if they were on fire. And these kids give me hugs. And I don't mean to be condescending when I say kids, but I've been honest about that. I am older than a lot of these comics. So to me, they are kids. And that's one of the reasons that I hang out with them, because they will ignite a certain thing in me where I'm just sort of like watching them be as excited about comedy and not realize the way this business is going to shit on them. It reminds me of when I was like that. And it reinvigorates me in certain cases. So that's why I'll talk to some of these people. And sometimes I'll meet the comics that are considered like the biggest comics in the world, or I'll be talking to some of the biggest comics in the world because I've known them for a while. And I will have more respect for the open micers that I dealt with than these people. Because these people in some cases don't even appreciate what it is they've got or where it is they are. And the open micer really does and is still working as hard as they could. But to get back to the situation with Tony and why I think what he does in certain ways is evil is I'm me. And so I can tell you guys that everything I'm telling you on this podcast and everything I've told you on every episode before is 100% true. I do not worry about these people. I have no feelings about people not talking to me. But imagine if I were a more sensitive personality. And imagine if Tony were effective in making it so nobody would want to talk to me and I was completely ostracized. Now imagine that I'm the kind of weak personality that would actually unalive myself because of being ostracized and feeling isolated this way. Now imagine Tony doing that to a person like this. That would be a different situation, right? Sort of like when he bullied Nick Roche right before Nick Roche unalived himself, which is something that nobody talks about, but other people were there. I know I was there. And I've talked about the fact that I didn't realize Nick Roche was going through anything, but Nick Roche was a very loved, newer comic on the scene. And he had been in a couple years and he was starting to feature for David Lucas, and that's why we were in the green room together, because David Lucas just released his special, Uncancelable. He just released that, but I was the feature for every one of those shows. I was there for every one of those shows. So I was in the green room when Tony was bullying Nick Roche. And that's more Tony's story to tell than mine, so I'll let him tell you guys that if he wants to. But I think personally, if he's the bitch he pretends to be, then he should have at least claimed his body. Like, you were effective in helping this guy to unalive himself. So you didn't learn your lesson then, and now what? You're trying to do that with me? Do you think that that'll work, Tony? Because I'm telling you, I'm not that guy. What's going to happen is every time I end up hearing that you say something about me again, I'm going to come back on the podcast and smack you again. I'm going straight to the source every time I get talked about. I'm not Nick Roche. So you navigate it however you want to navigate it. What I would do is I would just leave it alone now. Because like I said, when I talk to people person to person, I'm not talking about Mothership. people mention Mothership in front of me. When they mention Mothership in front of me, I treat it like they're talking about HEB or any other place. I don't get like, oh, Mothership, you're hanging out at the Mothership. I mean, like, how weak of a person do you have to be to even care who other adults are talking to? And how weak of a person do you have to be to listen to people when they tell you who not to talk to? That's one of the reasons that I really don't mind people not talking to me, because if you're that weak of a personality, you're not the kind of person that I want in my life anyway. Because I can tell you the biggest comics in the world that I'm friends with could call me and be like, hey, don't talk to so-and-so. And I'd be like, you must be out of your mind. That person has never done anything to me. That is not my business. That's between you and them. And I don't just say that. I literally saw somebody say that somebody was blackballed before. And then when I saw the guy that had supposedly been blackballed, I talked to him like I had every other time, because me and that guy had always been friends. And he didn't do anything to me. Now, if I were to run you through the situation, do I agree that he had done something wrong? Yeah, I did agree that he had done something wrong. But at the same time, the wrong that he did wasn't to me. And like I said a couple episodes ago, people that are cool with you may not be cool with me, and vice versa. And that's just the way not only comedy works, but the world works too. So why am I going to go take on other people's enemies when I don't require that of people from me or for me? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not going to pretend that it does. And I'm not going to pretend that I respect that about Tony. And I'm not going to pretend that I respect that from any of the door guys at the Mothership. Like, I've talked about that before. When it came to me and the guys at the Mothership, there was not a single person that is a door guy at the Mothership that I was not friends with. But now seeing this side of them, you know, like John Heft is another one that I was always cool with. John Heft, and he would always go out of his way to be nice to me, to make sure that he said hi to me. He would stop me when I was walking places. And if you know me, I don't really like a lot of people breaking my stride. You can talk to me once I stop wherever I stop. If I see you and we're friends like that, I will definitely stop myself and just hug you. But when I'm just walking and I'm like getting up a little bit of speed and trying to figure out where I want to be, or trying to get, because I usually don't have to figure out where I want to be. I usually walk into a place knowing where I want to go. Like if I'm at the creek, I know I'm going straight to the patio because I want to smoke a cigarette. Telling you the truth, a lot of times I have a cigarette cupped in my hand that I lit out front, and I just got... I'm not supposed to do that, but it's don't do that, you guys. Don't, because if we're all doing it, we're going to get busted. Are you guys trying to get me kicked out of the creek next? Is that what you guys are trying to do? Because I feel like you guys are being snitches right now. We're going to keep this between us and however many people listen. So if it's 20,000, 30,000, it's our secret, ladies. But anyway, I usually know I want to get to the patio. But literally at the creek, John Heft would grab me and stop me as I'm walking. I didn't even notice he was there, and he grabs me and stops me. But I just thought, you know, okay, he's really like, you know, like I said, I know some of the younger guys are a lot more like, you know, a lot more excited or whatever, excitable. And so like, if you stop me to say hi, I'm not going to check you and be like, hey, leave me alone. If you catch me on the right night, I might just be like, no, not today. I'm really trying to get to the back right now. But it's just, you know, it's very telling of how a person is when they're that level of on you. And then you have a falling out with a club, and you say nothing about them, nothing bad about them, even in private, because I would never say anything bad about John Heft because I really didn't have any bad feelings about him. I used to get my hair cut at his place because his roommate, Colin, cuts hair and would do my fade every week. But I don't feel like going to get my hair cut there anymore because I know the way that John has behaved with me since I've had my falling out with Mothership. And I just can't respect it, because it's like, between me and you, we both know that I didn't do anything wrong to you. And then there's the people that will walk up to me and say hi like they're being brave. Don't need it. Don't need you trying to act like, let me straighten up my shirt real quick and let Ty know that I still support him. I'm not looking for your support. Just be my friend or don't be my friend. Either way, I'm fine. But like I said, I got to wrap this up soon. I got a few minutes left in me. Well, really, I have a lot left in me. I just don't want to say all of it in case I need to record another episode. But like this is my actual attitude about all this stuff. Like a lot of it, I just find funny because life happens and the business is going to be the business. And I've done it for a long time. And this is technically my third or fourth time being blackballed. Leslie Jones blackballed me at one point. Felicia Michaels, who was married to Dave Becky, tried to blackball me at one point. I've had several people try to blackball me. I've been blackballed so many times that I've been blackballed from being blackballed at this point. But it's true. I have had a lot of blackballs. This is my attitude though, like I have a sense of humor about all of it because life is going to be life no matter what happens. And I know me and I'm going to figure out what I need to figure out no matter what comes my way. Because I'll tell you, I kind of wanted this to happen. And that's why, like I said, I can't be completely mad at the situation or even kind of mad at the situation because I'm not trying to get all hippie and weird on you guys. But I do believe in manifestation, and I do believe that your thoughts turn into things. And I remember there was a point where I felt like I really am just doing so many spots because people outside of the Austin scene can say whatever they want to say. But if you're on the Austin scene, you know how much stuff I was doing around town. Like I was everywhere. There was one night where I did 9 spots, I think it was. And then there was another night where I did 7 spots. And then there would be plenty of times when I'd be doing average 3 to 4 spots. And so when you're doing that and you're a person like me, you're not really spending that much time with your dogs, which sounds silly to a lot of people, but I do love my dogs so much that I really like spending time with them. So I wasn't spending enough time with my dogs. I was shooting almost no YouTube videos. If you notice the amount of YouTube videos I put out in the last week, that's been kind of a lot. I've been putting out a lot of content. And so it's like I wasn't doing that stuff. And I really do enjoy creating content. And if you look at the videos I made the ones that were pertaining to Mothership. And then I made like 3 or 4 videos that were just regular current events type things, which is what my channel does best on, which is what I really like doing. And so I do enjoy that part, even though it is tedious. And sometimes you're like, oh, I'm tired of editing and my eyes are going a little buggy or whatever the situation may be. I really do enjoy that. And so I wasn't doing that. And I remember wanting to kind of find a way out. And so maybe on a subconscious level, when I saw my excuse to get out of it, and I saw that I wasn't being treated the way that I should have been treated, and I saw that other people weren't being treated the way that they should have been treated. And I'll tell you guys this one little story real quick. And I'm going to include names just because I think that it's important, but it's not meant to be bad in any way. So I hope the people involved don't take it that way, but I have no control over how people take my words. So this is one that I'm just going to throw out there, and however it goes, it goes. But last week, I thought I was supposed to be doing a show at Nar Bar, which is right across the street from Sunset Strip. Sunset Strip, you guys may be familiar with because that's Red Band's Club, or it's part Red Band's Club. Technically, I think there's 3 owners at Sunset Strip, and Red Band is one of them. And if you guys pay attention to me at all, I do Secret Show all the time, or was doing Secret Show all the time. And I haven't, like the day that I put out the first video, Red Band had hit me up and asked me if I wanted to do a set on Secret Show, but I was already booked somewhere else for a private that was for a boot company. That was a cool show. It was a good situation, and they paid all right. It was a cool little situation, and so I did that show and didn't do Secret Show. So since then, I'm sure somebody put the word out to Red Band that he probably shouldn't have me on Secret Show anymore. And I can see with the things that I've said about Tony and Red Band being part owner of Kill Tony, or a co-host of Kill Tony and part owner of Kill Tony. And I will tell you that Red Band is the smartest thing about Tony Hinchcliffe. Just throw that in real quick. But I was told, or I thought I had a show at Narbar. And so I ended up over on that side of town, and I was walking towards Narbar, and then I realized that it wasn't Thursday, which would have been the night that I'm supposed to be at Narbar. I was technically booked by the guy that runs Narbar, Derek Dimful, but to do another show at a place called Circle Bar, which is somewhere on the other side of town. And so this was Wednesday instead of Thursday. Sometimes I get my days confused because there ain't no reason for me to pay attention to what day it is. I find out what day it is when I end up at the wrong place on the wrong day. And then I'm like, oh shit, it's Wednesday. And so that's what happened. And so I was like, I ended up seeing Candace Medina, who's very talented. I love Candace Medina. If you guys are ever at the Creek and Cave around 10 o'clock or in this area, downtown Austin, check out Banana Phone. That's a great show. And Candace is one that's worth her salt when it comes to stand-up. She is hilarious. I really love Candace Medina. But anyway, yeah. So I end up over there. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm not supposed to be at Narbar. I'm at the wrong place, but I'm sure I still have time. And so when I saw Candace, I was like, what's going on? She was like, I was just leaving Sunset. I was like, were you on a show at Sunset? And she was like, no, they were having the mic there. I just stopped in to say hi. And I was like, oh, they're doing a mic at Sunset, which I've been honest about the fact that I love Sunset. So I was like, I'm just going to run up real quick and do the mic at Sunset. And so I walk in, they ask me if I want to do a set on the mic, and I say yes. And I go back to the green room, and Janice, who is Red Band's fiance, was there, and I've known her all the way back since we were in LA. And I love Janice. I had Janice go to the open mic with me at Narbar one night after we did Secret Show. I wanted Janice to do my show. Still want Janice to do my show. Everybody that I've told that I like you and I want to have you on my show or whatever, for as long as I have my show, that is still valid. I don't feel any of what anybody else feels. You are not 86 from my life unless you choose to be. So I leave that to you. But I do love Janice, but I didn't like the conversation we had, because she did tell me that, she watched my videos, which isn't something you have to tell me. I know that everybody on the Austin scene watched my videos. And so I'm just like, okay, cool. And then she says, well, I'm sorry that you're quitting comedy because you are really funny. And then I was like, I appreciate that, but I'm doing what I do and we'll see how I do it. And then she was like, I'm not trying to tell you anything, but I just think, there's a better way to play the game. And I was like, yeah, Janice, that's what you don't get, is I don't want to play the game. That's what I'm saying in those videos. And that's why I've done things the way that I've done them, is because I don't want to play the game. And so then she was like, yeah, well, some people still do. And I was like, and you're welcome to that. Anybody is allowed to do anything they want to do. And if you guys choose not to talk to me, or anybody chooses not to talk to me, I'm not going to hold that against anybody. I get it that some people still want to play that game, but I personally just don't want to anymore. I'm done with that. And then she said something, and I don't remember what it was. It wasn't anything argumentative or particular. Janice is a very nice girl. And like I said, I'm not trying to flame her here. I just don't know any other way to tell this story. And so she said something, and then I was just like, yeah, just at this point in my life, I just want everything to be more genuine. And so when I hug someone, I am genuinely hugging that person. When I shake your hand, it's because we're actual friends. When I have a conversation with you, I want it to be because I have an actual conversation with you. So I just want to live my life this way, and I just want to be more genuine. And then she said, well, I just wish you would be a little less genuine. And to me, that's where she completely lost me. Because it's like, are you really asking me to be less genuine? Because that's not the way that things are supposed to work. Your friends aren't supposed to ask you to be less genuine. If we're actually friends, you shouldn't ask me to be less genuine, because that's going to lead to me being less happy. And maybe being less genuine and playing the game is what makes it so Brian Redband is drinking more than he should be almost every time I see him. Because I really do feel like at a point when you're not being honest with yourself and you're not living as your most authentic self or saying a lot of the things that you actually want to say, but you are being mistreated, because in my opinion, Redband does get mistreated. When I say he's the smartest thing about Tony, that's not really an insult to Tony. It's just Redband is, in his own way, a true mastermind. Like, he's the one who set up Joe Rogan Experience. He also did originally produced Ari Shaffir's podcast. He also originally produced Your Mom's House. And all of them went their own way after they built their thing. And then he was just left not being a part of those things, which he accepts that. But then at the same time, he gets asked to do the Mothership at a point because Brian Holtzman asked him to do the Mothership. And of course, when he gets asked, he's excited to do it. Of course, he wants to do the Mothership. But then he ends up finding out that Adam Egget, who I've called out as being the problem with the Mothership, won't allow him to perform at the Mothership. So, does anybody else see a flaw in that thinking? Because even if you were to say that Brian Redband isn't good enough to be at the Mothership, what I would say to that is, that's where you pull out Kim Congdon or Sarah Weinshank and put Brian Redband in there instead. Because if somebody's going to eat shit, it might as well be somebody that's helped build a lot of things. To me, that's where you put in the favor. Because I'm not completely against favors in the way that the comedy world works. I just think that we should give back to the people that have given to us. And with the opportunities that Redband has given, not only to comics that have done well at Kill Tony and been on Secret Show, but also to the comedy community in general through the podcasting and through really pioneering that, because he doesn't get enough credit for the way he really did pioneer a lot of that. And so, I don't mean to be rude, but I think that maybe if Janice would tell Redband every once in a while to stand up for himself rather than giving him the subliminal to be less genuine, maybe Redband would be a little more happy. And some people are going to feel certain ways about me saying this, and some people are going to be mad about it, and you can take it however you want to take it. But this is just me being the most honest version of myself that I can possibly be, and telling you things in a way that hopefully they make sense. Because that's really all I try to do on these, is tell you guys what my perspective is. And even if you don't agree with my course of action on things, at least you can see how it is I would decide to make the decisions that I've made. And so for me, being a more genuine person is the route to go, rather than becoming a drinker or smoking more than I should smoke. And I'm not saying that everybody that's drinking is trying to drown things, but I am saying that in that world, when I would be hanging out at the Mothership, there were plenty of people that were drowning feelings. And to wrap up the thing about Tony Hinchcliffe, I don't completely think Tony is an evil person. I think Tony has a lot of little man issues that he has to work out. And I think Tony knows deep down, even though every time he walks in a green room, he acts like Kramer and has to be like, oh, the big man's in. And it's like, if you're really good at stand-up, you don't have to do all that. The biggest stand-ups in the world don't act like that. Go meet Shane Gillis sometime. He's very chill. Tim Dillon is very chill. Big J. Okerson, very chill. And these comics are all top of the line on stage and in the financial department. They're huge, but they don't act like that. But Tony, for some reason, has to let everybody know that a big dick has just walked in the room. And it doesn't make sense. But I don't completely think he's bad because he has supplied some opportunities for people. Do I think that's on some level self-serving? Of course. It's Tony Hinchcliffe. But at the same time, there are still people benefiting from it. Like I said, Cam Patterson, David Jolly, Hans Kim to a certain degree. But again, this is also why I don't feel like Tony should be so pressed about me doing what I'm doing and saying what I'm saying, because what I'm saying is actually entertaining, and it is still in the vein of entertainment. Where the stuff that they're doing, which is on the phone or through text, is all kind of underground and evil. That's where it's not just entertainment anymore. And maybe they just see it in a way I don't, but the way I see it is we're all in show business. So if it's entertaining, then it's entertaining. And if Tony's going to create this world that's more like WWE than it is like traditional stand-up, why would he get mad at a villain like me coming in and just kind of torpedoing what it is he's trying? Oh, that's because he's actually doing sneak shit. It's not, that part isn't kayfabe. That part is actually you trying to be evil in certain ways. But I still don't think he should mind it because he puts Hans Kim under this same gun every week, which is kind of the same thing. I thought at first that it was, I guess this is where I'm wrapping up, because I thought at first that it was fun that he would put Hans through these challenges, because 100%, like if it was me that was under a weekly challenge to write a new minute every week, I would actually thrive in that because I have fun with that kind of stuff. But I also wouldn't really care if somebody ended up taking my spot. I'd be like, okay, well then I'm done. And maybe I'll come back and challenge them later. But for right now, I'm done. But for Hans, this really does matter. And so while I at first thought it was fun, I realized that Hans is dealing with a lot of stress when it comes down to it. And Tony knows that he's putting Hans through that because Tony knows the way Hans is better than I do. I know Hans way less than Tony does. So Tony knows he's doing that to Hans too. And so then when I come in and maybe put in just a little bit of pressure where he might feel something because he's being kind of told about himself in a way, suddenly now he can't handle it and this person must be stopped. I must make it so nobody talks to this person. It's like, okay, well, make it so nobody talks to me, and then maybe I'll finally finish cleaning my apartment the way that I want to. I'm doing pretty good, but it's not 100% there yet, which is a lot like a lot of these people stand up. Doing pretty good, but it's not quite there yet. Anyway, hope this episode makes sense. I'm not going to edit any of it, even though, even thinking in my head right now, there are parts that I want to edit. But it's going to stay what it's going to stay. And so I appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully next episode I'll be talking about something else. But like I said, if anybody says anything crazy, jumping right back on it. Thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Slumber Party with Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.